Hello and welcome to another little discussion. Um, I want to talk about today about connections between your characters and connections between your scripts. Now, connections between your characters, I think that's the most fun you can have, or at least I know that's the most fun I have, is to understand. I tend to do this after kind of I've done my leaned out of frame there, sorry. After I've done my big kind of second draft, I let it stew for a while, and then as I go into my rewrites, I think that's when I discover most about my character. Now I do a big think about my characters as I'm constructing the second draft, but then I think I fall into really, really detailed understanding when I do my rewrites. This is when I really understand, okay, what's their motivation? Who are these people? And this is what I'm going to be talking about today. What are their connections? What are their big connections to each other and their big connections to the rest of the world that they inhabit? And so start up with the connections to each other. The relationships is the relationship that happens between your main characters and your side characters are the dynamics that will shape the entirety of your story, right? So you want to keep them subtle. You don't want to have it too on the nose. Okay, introduce the character and then you introduce their boyfriend and then immediately he says, "Oh, hi, girlfriend. How are you doing?" No. Or the trope that I love so much is that a character is introduced to their sibling, and to make us, the audience, understand that it's their sibling, they say, "Hi, bro. Have you seen mom lately?" And it's like, okay, so we get it, you're siblings. So I try to be in their character introduction. That is such a magical moment. I try to be as concise as possible and to make it as clear as possible how these characters are connected, or if they're not connected yet, how they're going to be connected to each other and how their relationship is going to form. I think it's about we get a first impression about a person in like the first 12 seconds that we meet them. And so in the first 12 seconds of your first character interaction, you should already have established how this is gonna, go. And so my favorite character introduction, I suppose, that I've ever written, was when in a script called In Your Name, and Amy, who is a gangster leading lady, and she comes back to recruit her old pal whom she used to, build bombs with, and she comes to his mansion in Spain, and the first thing that they interact with is about a dead guy that's in front of them on the ground, that, the bomb making guy is poking in the face with a stick. And they talk about, oh, well, they all end up dead. And so it's a character introduction of okay, we know these two, A, they're gangsters, B, they have history. Like, they have history together. They've been through some stuff. And so that moment of character introduction is I think really important, because it sets up so much of your connection of that character to another character and of that character to the world. So when you or when I have written my script, and I understand the story, I understand the script, and I'm going into microsurgery about my script, I look at those key moments. I look at the moment, okay, how am I introducing this character? Am I introducing this character in a way that makes it abundantly clear who they are and what they're going to be? Or am I introducing this character in a way that could be ambiguous? Does it fit their voice in the rest of the movie? Does it not fit the tone that I'm trying to set here? So that's the connection that I try to make. And then the connection to the world that they live in. I try to find a connection. I try to find a moment in the script where I show them, where I show, especially my main character, I want to show them in the world that they inhabit. Oftentimes, I show those moments, especially in the earlier drafts, and they kind of get cut out then in later rewrites because I see, okay, I've already showed them being like this. I don't need to show it again. But especially in my first drafts, I love showing just a daily routine of the character. So, if I've recently written a script about a writer. So I just had her, writing. I just had her sitting down in magical places and writing her story. Which later I cut all of that out because it wasn't necessary because she was introduced in a different way. But for me to understand the story and to understand her character a little bit better, it was very necessary for me to write those scenes down. And so that connection to their world, to the world that they inhabit, I try to see, okay, how would a day, just a normal day in the life of this character, what would that look like? What do they drink in the morning? What do they, you know, what music do they dance to? What, do they have a Roomba or do they still have a handheld Hoover thingy? I mean, it's silly, but those connections to their world will make them that much more real in my head and will make me understand that much better the 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 story and who they are and who they're trying to be and who they're desperately trying not to be. And so that's the main connection. We have two sets of connections. We have connections between characters and we have connections between the character and their world. And if you understand those connections really, really well, then I think you have a good chance of understanding your characters really, really well. And you have a good chance of understanding who they are and their motivations and whether the story makes sense. And that's my take on character connections.